Hi, this is Alex and Travel Titbits 51, part day of a day out to South Devon, and I'm here at Topsham, the historic port of Topsham. But first we're starting at the railway station. It's on the Exmouth branch, and this is the crossover point for trains travelling to and from between Exmouth and Exeter. So this station was built in 1861. Let's take a closer look. Now somewhere around this station there was a branch line, and it was built at the time the station was built in 1861. It wasn't very long, and it was said to be at the south end of the station. I always assumed that this was an east-west station, but I guess it's not. So I'm going to assume that the southern end is what we're looking at the moment. And it wasn't a very long branch line. It was only 700 yards, and its sole purpose was to reach the wharf. So the wharf was only 700 yards from here, and the branch line was said to be steep. How steep it was, I do not know, but I assume that if it was, it must have been some sort of pulley system. And we're going to discuss the port in a bit more detail as we get closer, but let's have a look at the rest of the station. Which still has the original station building, but I don't suppose it's being used anymore. We will cross over and see if we can find something. Level crossings used to be a very common sight pretty much on the entire network, including the signal box. So at one time this would have been a manually operated, and there would have been a large wheel inside the box. I don't know how much hard work it would have been, but given that trains regularly passed, I imagine you had to be quite fit. Now the gates are automatically operated. They have lights and barriers. This branch line down to Exmouth was once part of a much larger network. When getting to Exmouth, it was possible that was a more substantial station than it is today. It was possible to go east and swing right across and join the Southern Railway. But that will be for another video. Quite a busy road. I'm guessing the signal box has been left here as it's a listed building, but I'm also assuming that the guts of it has been taken out. Help points, as you can see on platform 1 and platform 2, is now the only way of communicating with staff, as this was yet another unstaffed station. And as I said in my last video, there is a determination to have more of their network unstaffed. Well, it looks like the station building has been turned into flats. Number 1 and number 2. Not sure what a studio. And the bus stop. Well, it's a fine building, and it's great that it's still here. Let's see if we can take a look from the other side of the road. Well, at least it has survived. A lot of places, these buildings have simply been wiped off the map. Let's go into town. A few shots before walking into town. As you reach the centre of Topsham, you suddenly realise that the streets are getting narrower and narrower, and eventually we reach the Exe Riverside, and I'm heading towards the Topsham ferry. The River Exe, and well, there is a Topsham ferry here, but whether that's where you get on and off, but it is a very short crossing, and you can just about see where they possibly go to, which is a gated entrance to a canal. Where there are many walks and a cycle path. A lovely area to walk in summer when it's not raining. The ferryman tells me the river is very tidal and it's quite a regular service. So now we're walking towards the main quay. What will we find there? So I'm on the quayside of Topsham, which is down as an historic port since around 1300, but its history goes a lot further back than that, to the time of the Romans, who also recognised that this port, or this river Exe, as we now call it, was a safe harbour, and Romans are first thought to have come here in around 250 BC, but it wasn't until 44 AD that they formed a permanent settlement called Isca Dominorium, which was based on local terminology, but kind of turned into Latin, and it roughly translates to running water. Now the fortified town, which later became Exeter, only really lasted until about 84 AD, but the town walls, or the walls that exist today, I doubt they're the original Roman walls, but 70% of the town retains walls, and these are said to form the original Roman fortification line. So back to Topsham. So it's been a port since 1300, and the why that date is important is because in that year Edward I issued a royal charter, which essentially meant you had the right to hold markets, and it remained a separate town until 1966, until it was incorporated into Exeter proper. And in the last census of 2021, Topsham is said to have just over 4,000 residents. The port itself was known for exporting cotton to Europe via Holland, which also accounts for the fact that several of the houses have Dutch heritage, and indeed the bricks that they're made from are Dutch bricks. The motorway in the distance is evidence as why Topsham is no longer a major port. What we're seeing, the traffic going across there, is the southernmost point of the M5 joining with the A30 going down to Cornwall, southern Devon and Cornwall. Today there are a mixture of restaurants, one being made today, and several pubs. This is a car park, and presumably during the winter months, a little like Ilfracombe on the North Devon coast, the boats will be lifted up and maintained on this quayside. So it's interesting that an interesting fact is that whilst the port was established here, the Romans realised that they could go much further upriver, which definitely influenced where Exeter is today, because we're about 4 or 5 miles to Exeter from here. So were they braver? Did they just have the right kind of boats, flat bottom boats perhaps? Or they just didn't mind about the tide, because this area is extremely tidal, as the Topsham ferryman was telling me. So that does have a big influence. I guess the tides are not quite so severe at this end of the channel, of the estuary, than they are further upstream. So it's a very calm late July afternoon here on Topsham Quay. So that was Travel Titbits 51 at Topsham and Topsham Quay. Some more shots will be added in. See if you can spot different kinds of architecture, and maybe the route that the Quayside Railway went. We'll see if we can spot all of these things. Catch you next time. I shall be returning to Topsham for another video where I shall reveal the exact location of the Quayside Railway. Have you spotted any Dutch housing? Let me know.